הסימפוניה השנייה של מאלר היא מהאתגרים הגדולים ביותר שעומדים בפני כל מנצח. משהו ענקי. שלום למנצח פרדריק שזלן, שלום מאסטרו, שלום פרד.
שלום אריק.
How are you? Tell me, how about conducting Mahler's Second Symphony? What is so special about it?
There is a lot of things that are special about it, but I would say, first of all, it's a piece that describes the most Mahler. It's a piece that, as he said himself, contains the entire world. In this particular piece, it comes from the fact that Mahler wrote it at different periods. And he tended it to be first a funeral march, a Totenfeier. Then he added the second movement and he let it simmer for a long time. Then he included some leaders that he wrote, and then he wanted finally at the end to write something that would even beat Beethoven's Ninth Symphony.
You said life, but it's not only about life, it is about external life. It is about Urlicht, the northern light.
Exactly. And you know, some anecdotes by Mahler make it really interesting and make it exciting. For instance, why did he write at the end this incredible ending? Because he was at the funeral of Ernst von Bülow, who was, as you might remember, the first husband of Mrs. Wagner.
Yeah.
So, and Ernst von Bülow totally rejected this music. When Mahler came to play his symphony on the piano, Bülow totally rejected, but he wrote only the first movement. Then Mahler went to the funeral of Ernst von Bülow, and he heard someone singing for the funeral a tune that he liked very much, and then he included that tune into this symphony that became the most fabulous finale and made this symphony famous. So the tune of the funeral of Ernst Bülow, who rejected his symphony, made this symphony famous.
How long is the piece?
About an hour and 20 minutes.
Hour and 20 minutes. Last movement, how long is just last movement?
It's difficult to say the last movement. The finale from the moment the choir sings, which is the most famous, the most spectacular, lasts about 13 for 14 minutes. But the last movement itself lasts more like half an hour or something.
And tell me about the instrumentation. It's immense.
It's immense, but it's not that immense. First of all, there are many possibilities. Mahler writes in the score 6 to 10 trumpets, because he put a lot of people on stage. But if you decide to have only 2 people on stage, it's like the Alpen Symphony of Strauss. You can, in theory, have 20 horns, but you can do with less than that.
So there are some players not on stage, off stage.
Exactly.
How do you conduct them?
Generally, I don't conduct them myself. It's through a monitor. Maybe there is sometimes a stage conductor. It's generally a problem. It's never easy.
And when you conduct 10 trumpets, 10 horns, many trombones as well, is your motions larger? Show me some Mahler conducting.
Oh, there is no special Mahler conducting. You know, the most, if you speak about athletic movements, I would say the opera. The opera is the most athletic, because imagine when I'm on stage and I have people that I have to reach, which are probably 10 meters from me, it's not a big distance. When I'm in the opera, they can be 20 meters, but 5 or 6 meters up. So this is real bodybuilding. You know, the opera is real bodybuilding. I would say on stage it's still just you know, it's just I would say the gym. You know, the gym in your hotel, something like that. But it's not the big spa. It's not the big.
Do you have a Mahler baton?
No, I have a baton that was given by me by Carlos Kleiber when I was the pianist on one of his productions. And this baton is decently long. It's not longer, not shorter than the average. It has a big grip here in the shape of a pear. And I liked it very much because I thought it gave him those very elegant movements that made him legendary. And I told him, I said, I love your baton. He said, really? Take it.
You certainly recall this caricature of a conductor having a score instead of notes, some pictures of how to move the arms. As you say, the gym.
Yeah. Well, you know, I personally never think of my movements. I never prepare anything. I prepared when I was a very young conductor. I worked a little bit like I designed a couple of movements that I liked. But the way I learned is more by observing other conductors that I really admire, that I feel close to my body type, to my musical type. And then by watching them, I took some of them, and now I have my own building of collections of my conductors that I melted into my own personality. But I really never think of, am I going to do this or this movement? It has to be spontaneously the movement that is needed at one certain moment, and that that depends on everything that happens before. So it's very difficult to prepare a movement.
So let us watch some of those spontaneities, some of these rare moments of Mahler's second.
Of course.
Frédéric, that was incredibly spiritual, and I could really see the Nordic light that I mentioned before. You know, once I was on a flight and I saw this Nordic light, you know, like waterfall of lights from sky. Do you feel this kind of vision when you conduct Mahler's second?
I feel that rather when I conduct Sibelius, if we speak about Nordic light. Mahler is the man of the world. I see sometimes Italy, I see sometimes even Jerusalem. You can see in the Lied von der Erde, his Chinese poems, he's the man of the world. The Nordic lights, yeah, sometimes. He was very impressed. He did a big trip to Scandinavia by the boat. He was very impressed by the space, by the quietness, etc.
And when he mentioned Urlicht in his symphony, I thought of this kind of incredible vision, something out of this world.
Oh, probably, yeah. He was a big metaphysician. He was very spiritual, and his conception of the resurrection, etc., when you read carefully the text of the resurrection, is very close to the Buddhism.
Yeah.
It's very close to the Buddhism. It means that my favorite phrase is the phrase at the end that everybody should have printed in there. It's each beating my heart is talking to his heart. It's each of your beating is taking me closer to God.
Robert Frost speaks about God as well.
A lot, yeah, a lot. He was a very mystical poet.
Very mystical poet, and he wanted to be exposed and, on the other hand, to hide, like Mahler.
Yeah, he thought, like every creator, you cannot be always exposed to other people. You need to be very protected. He lived alone most of his time. Mahler had a wife, but lived alone in his little Häuschen, you know, where he was writing his music. A creator needs to be alone a lot. It's very important. You cannot be disturbed by the phone, by the telephone, by the internet, and you cannot even be disturbed by friends or by a companion all the time. You have to be in your own bubble. But that bothers Frost in a certain way.
We would like now to ask Claire to sing your song of Robert Frost with your accompaniment kindly. What attracted you so much to write for Robert Frost lyrics?
It's completely good luck. One day I was writing a song for a friend who is a Canadian gold miner. And he helped me to finance my latest opera, Wuthering Heights. And as a reward, since he's a gold miner, I wanted to write him a song about gold. And I found this gold this gold poem by Robert Frost that I didn't know. And then I discovered that all the Robert Frost poems are extraordinary. And then when I finished my first cycle, I discovered that Robert Frost died on the day I was born. So I thought that this is just a good sign. So since then, I write almost all of his poems systematically into music.
And Claire is already waiting for singing you fantastic Robert Frost song. תודה רבה לקלר, זה היה כל כך יפה, כל כך רוברט פרוסט, כל כך שזלן. Fred, tell me, are you a French composer?
It's difficult to say. I write a lot on English authors. Until now, I wrote almost only on English authors. And this influenced a lot the kind of music that you produce. But if you know a bit Francis Poulenc, for instance, those chords here that I wrote... This is very Poulenc. So
That's why I asked you.
I can't avoid it from time to time to let...
You were born in France.
I was born in France.
And you don't ignore it.
I don't ignore it, but I guess if I wrote music based on French text, that would probably show more.
But the French flavor, this bouquet, is everywhere. I felt that it is post-Poulenc, and Poulenc is post-Ravel, and also this pattern, it's a kind of post-Fauré.
Probably, but when I write, for instance, purely instrumental music, like in my Gypsy Dance, for instance, here I can't see really where is the French composer. It's probably because it's like Mahler. You know, my Jewish soul makes me travel through the world. I don't know. I'm like a sponge. When I take an English writer, I become English. When I take an American writer, I become American. If I take a Spanish text, I become... Ravel had actually this capability. He even said one day he was in Algeria, I think, at the end of his life with friends, and they were eating some tagine and listening to some Arabic music, and he said, if I would write Arabic music, it would sound much more Arabic than this.
And we are filming fantastic video clips from this visit. He stands on the balcony and wave or enter the car. It's amazing. You mentioned the gypsy dance. Tell us about the gypsy dance.
Well, it's a piece that I wrote originally for the piano, and I orchestrated for the orchestra. And I became very gypsy at the time. I was writing an opera based on Wuthering Heights that is all about the gypsy story of a young boy.
Yeah.
And then
Heathcliff.
Heathcliff, exactly.
Yeah, Heathcliff.
So I decided to write a dance that would be my first instrumental piece. And at the end, I was not completely happy with that piece because I was thinking everything that is gypsy needs either a guitar or a violin, because the violin is the instrument of the traveler. You know, the instrument that everybody carries on their shoulder when they are kicked away from any place.
The guitar is too large.
The guitar is sometimes too large. The violin is even is perfect. So I wrote it for last month, especially for your show. I wrote that new variation that I will eventually extend to a violin concerto, and where I put 4 different types of gypsy music. It starts with Hungarian gypsy music, Romanian gypsy music, Yiddish gypsy music, and it ends with jazz gypsy music. So the music of the travelers.
And you know about the gypsy in Sinai Peninsula, so you must write about the Arab gypsies.
I haven't tried this one. Yes, I'm very curious.
And we shall ask Jana and yourself to perform the fantastic, in my eyes, in my ears, gypsy dance.
Thank you, Arik.
Frédéric, Mahler in his Second Symphony mixed voices and instruments. This was his first symphony to mix it. He had a good teacher for that, Beethoven in the 9th.
That's true. Actually, everybody jokes and say that he wanted to beat and make it bigger, stronger, and higher. I don't think he was so arrogant, but it's certainly the goal that he set to himself, because at this time, it's not the problem of Beethoven, it's a problem of Wagner, who made everything bigger after Beethoven. So anybody who wanted to, it's like a competition of flying balloons. You needed to fly higher to be noticed. So he needed his balloon to fly even higher than Wagner, not really higher than Beethoven.
Yeah, but listen, Wagner wrote operas, and mixture of voices and instruments is natural. But to write a symphony with voices, this is something new. Beethoven was the first one in his ninth, and then Mahler was attracted.
Yeah, because I think Beethoven realized that he was carrying some messages in his symphonies, especially after number 3, in the number 5. In the number 6, it was more painting. Number 7 probably had a little message as well, the joy, the happiness, etc. Number 8 did probably have a message. But for number 9, I think he had a message, and he realized that at some point the words have to be included, the music at its limit. The music expresses too many things and nothing, so he needed to have a very clear message. And after, with the success of opera, it became more and more obvious that if you have something strong to say, you need to use the words. And since Mahler started, like I start my composition career with melodies, with words, it was natural for him. It was not only a necessity, it was natural for him to use the words. And after, you notice that he stopped until the number 8. And then he stopped using the word. He did symphonies with pure music, with a program. But there is always a program, like Strauss. There is always a program in his music. So unspoken words.
And we shall hear now just a little bit. We are on a tasting menu of Beethoven Ninths, conducted by the maestro. Beethoven wrote the Ode for Joy, and Fred wrote the Ode for Peace.
That's right. It was commissioned by the United Nations for their Week of Peace. And I was commissioned to do so because the great composer Michel Legrand cancelled the commission for reasons that belong only to him. So they were asking me, since the orchestra, my orchestra of Jerusalem, was involved in the project, could you write it? So I told the producer, listen, I will give you a sample. And an hour later, I sent him the sample. And he called me back and he said, I want it. It's wonderful. We love it. So I'm always very happy to hear that. So I wrote this ode, which is a very difficult exercise. You know, I wrote music, movie music, for instance, which is a difficult exercise as well. But nothing is more difficult than writing a ode, because it's solemn, it has to be a catchy tune, and it has to carry a strong message. So I hope that I succeeded in that task.
Ode for Peace. This is quite a message for our country.
For every country, yeah.
ואת הסיום שלנו נוכל לומר בעברית, כי האורח שלנו, המאסטרו פרדריק שזלן, מבני עמנו, מדבר עברית.
כן, אני מדבר יותר טוב בשנה שעברה, בטח.
פרד, ידידי הטוב, היה כיף להיות איתך כאן. ניגנת לנו, וחיברת לנו מוזיקה יפה, וניצחת על מאלר ובטהובן. מה עוד אפשר לבקש? תודה רבה.
תודה רבה, אריק.